Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Maheshwari. Today I am going to discuss about the basic elements of the communication systems. Before going to that topic, let me tell you what is communication first. As we all know, the communication is nothing but communicating some sort of information from one point to another point or one place to another place. So communication is nothing but a kind of exchanging or transferring an information from one person to another person. It may be categorized as a point-point communication, multi-point communication, network communications, and etc. So simply a point-point communication means from one point to another point or from one place to another place we can send some sort of information, should be informative as well as useful to the another end. What kind of information can be able to transmit? The information may be a type of an audio or video, a kind of a text information, or any sort of an information can be transmitted to the another end. So what kind of a signal can be termed up as an information? The signal, the information can be termed up by means of an analog signal or a digital signal. So what is an analog signal first? It is nothing but a continuous time signal. So any kind of a signal can be characterized by means of three parameters. One is amplitude, another one is time period, another one is a phase. So with respect to all parameter, with respect to the continuous time, the signal to be varied. So it keeps on varying with respect to time intervals. That is termed as an analog signal. If it is a digital signal means which is not continuous in nature, it has some finite value. So depending upon the analog type and digital type, a communication system can be termed as an analog communication system and another type which is called as a digital communication systems. Before we are going to see about what is an analog communication system and digital communication system, there are two important input signal which has to be taken place under the communication systems, which are a message and a carrier signal. What is a message signal? The message, from the name itself, we have to understand it has some information. So that information to be transmitted at the another end. The other names of the message signals are modulating signal, low frequency signal, or a baseband signal. In the similar way, the carrier signal can be otherwise called as a high frequency signal. The carrier signal, which is nothing but an empty signal which is used to carry some useful information to be transmitted from one end to another end. So depending upon the usage of the message and carrier signal, the analog communication system and digital communication system can be performed. So if the usage of the message and carrier signal both to be in analog manner means, the analog signal can be used under the communication system to be processed. If the analog signals are processed, the system can be called as an analog communication system. In the same way, if the information to be transmitted in terms of a digital manner, or the information means your message. Your message can be communicated as a data with respect to the train of pulses means that can be comes under the category of digital communication systems. The basic elements of the communication system, the basic schematic has been taken by means of some of the sources. These are only some textbooks can be used to study about what is a communication system. Both the textbook as well as a Google stage has been made to give up this video. This is your basic schematic of the basic communication system. It may be an analog communication or digital communication system. This is your basic schematic which carried out 5 important blocks present over here. In the schematic itself, each and every block performance will be given. So let me say about a transducer which is placed at the input side. So hence it is called as an input transducer. The major function of the transducer, which is nothing but which is used to convert any kind of an input signal, it may be called upon a message signal. So that input signal can be converted into an electrical format. So the major job of the input transducer, which is nothing but converting an input signal into a form of electrical signal. So the original information may be in any type, maybe an audio signal or a video signal, whatever it is, that can be transmitted into an it can be converted into an electrical signal. That is to be transmitted to your transmitter. So under the communication system, the transmitter, which is used to transmit your information by doing some of the important process. So under the transmitter, so many process has been carried over. The main processes are modulation, then amplification, then multiplexing, and so on. So one of the major process to be taken over under the transmitter is modulation. Anyway, here the transmitter, which is used to transmit an electrical signal to your receiver via the channel. Channel is nothing but a medium. It may be a wired medium or wireless medium. Definitely it is disturbed by means of a disturbance or unwanted signal, which is called as a noise. So with respect to noise, the information to be transmitted to your receiver, that is a kind of a signal which is called as an electrical signal, which may be termed as a received signal. So under the receiver, the reverse process to be taken over in the transmitter, which is placed. So it will definitely a receiver which is used to recover the original information. Anyway, from the receiver, the signal is an electrical signal to be transmitted into a destination, into an original format which is already transmitted at your transmitter. So the original, the signal, which is nothing but the message signal, which will be recovered from the receiver. Anyway, what is the usage of the transducer, which can be convert the electrical signal into a original format at the output side. So these are all the 5 major blocks which is placed under the basic communication systems. I already told you the analog communication system and digital communication system are the 2 major categories under the communication system. These are all the some example placed under the analog and digital communication system. If we go for an analog communication system, means a very simple instrument has been taken as an example, which is nothing but a phonographic system. It is an instrument which is an instrument will talk between a mic and speaker. The speaker will reproduce the original sound which is recorded under the disc, which is nothing but you have to consider your information as an audio signal. You can able to produce your information as a audio signal to your disc via the amplifier. The amplifier generally which is used to boost your signal. It will amplify your signal. Then using this needle, the sound waves will record all your information. So it will tune to your all your information to be tunable. So it will at the another end, it is tuned by means of a needle. The same vibration has been taken by this disc that can be replica at the another end. That will be given to your destination as your speaker. You can receive your information from the speaker. So kind of the simple thing is a kind of transmitting an analog signal, which is nothing but an audio signal by means of a phonographic instrument. In the similar way, a digital communication system in general, which is going to transmit a digital sort of information. For example, all your information, which is nothing but a combination of audio and video information, can be transmitted to your satellite via the transmitting antenna. So under the transmitter, all your information, it may be an analog signal, means that can be converted into a digital format by means of so many process. This signal can be accepted by means of a digital manner. So under the digital communication system. So the components which is placed under the transmitter in digital communication system will accept a digital signal. Anyway, that can be transmitted to your receiver. Means your satellite via the transmitting antenna. So the receiving antenna placed at the receiver will receive the information from the satellite as a digital information that will be recovered in the original format to be transmitted into a display system. This is a very simple mechanism behind the digital communication systems. So as I told you already, a very important process which will be placed under the transmitter, which is nothing but a modulation. I tell you about in a simplified manner what is a modulation means. It is between the input signals, which is nothing but a carrier and a message signal. The other name of a message signal is a modulating signal, that is a low frequency signal, as well as a carrier signal as a high frequency signal. So you are going to change some characters of the high frequency signal with respect to the modulating signal or a message signal. What are all the characteristics? The characteristics are nothing but amplitude, time period and phase. So it may be also termed as a parameters. So depending upon this characteristic, the modulation has been taken place by varying the characteristics, which are nothing but the types of the modulation. So according to the characteristics, the modulation has been categorized as a continuous wave modulation and pulse modulation. Continuous wave modulation can be subcategorized as amplitude modulation. Frequency and phase modulation can be combinedly called as an angle modulation. Anyway, under the continuous wave modulation, we have three characters. One is amplitude, frequency and phase. And under the pulse modulation, again, the subcategories are analog pulse modulation and digital pulse modulation. Under the analog pulse modulation, the three characters of the pulses, which are amplitude, width and position. According to that, pulse amplitude modulation, pulse width modulation and pulse position modulations are framed. Under the digital modulation, the two important modulations are pulse code modulation and delta modulations are the two important categories. Coming to the important definitions on three important definitions on three categories of continuous wave modulation: amplitude, frequency and phase modulation. If it is an amplitude modulation, means the very important character, which is nothing but an amplitude or magnitude of a particular signal. The signal may be carrier, which may be in analog type or digital type, but it is a continuous wave modulation, means definitely it is a analog type. Anyway, the amplitude of the high frequency carrier signal is varied, means it is an amplitude modulation with respect to the modulating signal. In the similar way, the frequency of the high frequency carrier signal is varied with respect to the modulating signal, means that is defined as a frequency modulation. In the same way, the phase of the high frequency carrier signal is varied with respect to the amplitude of the modulating signal, or with respect to the modulating signal, means that is the phase modulation. Coming to the amplitude modulation, amplitude with respect to the full carrier be termed as AM with carrier, and AM with only one carrier, AM with suppressed carrier can be termed as double sideband suppressed carrier. AM with one sideband is suppressed and carrier is suppressed, means single sideband suppressed carrier. These are all the some subcategories of the amplitude modulation. Under the frequency modulation, two types of the frequency modulations are narrowband frequency modulation and wideband frequency modulation. So what is a pulse modulation? Pulse modulation means definitely a modulation leads of two input signal. One is a carrier, another one is a message. The carrier can be used as a pulse, means that is a kind of a pulse modulation. Anyway, we will see it in later, but in general, what is a pulse modulation means? A pulse modulation is a process which is used to convert an input continuous wave into an output discrete type. Discrete means a non-continuous type. So that is the major definition of the pulse modulation. It can be categorized into an analog and digital type. Under the analog type, the three important parameters are varied with respect to the modulating signal, which are amplitude, width and position of the carrier. What is your carrier? It is a pulse type signal. It is going to be varied with respect to the modulating signal. Hence, it will be termed as pulse amplitude modulation, pulse width modulation and pulse position modulation. The next category is a digital pulse modulation. Under this, the two very important type digital modulation technique is pulse code modulation and delta modulation. Furtherly, it can be subcategorized as differential pulse code modulation and adaptive delta modulation. Anyway, the pulse code modulation means analog to discrete conversion. Analog to discrete conversion means in terms of a binary sequence, or you can send one bit per carrier pulse, means that is a kind of a delta modulation. Anyway, this communication which is used to do a modulation which we use to convert an analog information into a kind of a discrete type or a binary sequence. Coming to the another process, which is nothing but the reverse process of modulation, is a detection. The overview, which is nothing but to recover the original information by the process called a demodulation. Thanks for watching this video.